Hello there, great book lovers. This is the B-side book review, and today we're going to be looking at a book called Facing the Lion. I even have my lion shirt on. I got this at the MGM Grand Casino in Vegas a few years ago. But this book has nothing to do with Vegas or gambling, and I keep wanting to call it Facing the Dragon. It's not the dragon, it's the lion. It's actually a autobiography slash nonfiction about a guy called, oh boy, Joseph. I'm not even gonna try this name. I'll put on the graphic. You can try it. We're just going to call him our man Joe. That works for me. Okay, it says here, growing up Maasai on the African Savanah. So grab some coffee or whatever you want, and let's check this book out, Facing the Lion, not the Dragon. Okay, when I picked this book up at our local Hastings bargain shelf, I had no idea what it was about. Facing the Lion? Now, is this some kind of idiom for the struggles against the social injustice imposed by a third world government? Is it about facing your own inner demons? Or, I just could have looked at the cover of the book and maybe I would have thought it was some kid growing up on the African Savanah who sometimes had to face a lion. Yes, we have the memoirs of our man Joe, the life and times in northern Kenya. And lo and behold, our story begins with a young Joseph at a cow camp where a couple of lions are planning to make a feast of the village's herd. In fact, his mother's favorite cow falls victim to the jaws and claws. Actually, our man Joe here was a bit of a hero because he ran off to the neighboring village for reinforcements. Well, okay, he was kind of a hero. Now, although he was using his head, because let's face it, numbers count when you're battling two lions with spears. But he was also seen as running from danger. So, the intentions were good, but the visual, maybe not. However, this book is about way more than just a kid and a lion. And two lions. It's basically the life and the times the nomadic people of the, let's see if I can say this, Maasai tribe of Eastern Africa. Maasai, there we go. People who live a life that is so simple, they make your average Amish folks look like the Jetsons. George Jetson and his boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Okay, Joe lets us in on some of the regime of the Savannah life. Some that just made me sit back and go, wow. Okay, I've got no problem with drinking milk straight from the cow. I've done that a million times in my life. But what's this bleeding the cows thing? Oh yeah, Joseph tells us with much excitement how they would slice open the cow's jugular and bleed a gourd full of the cow's blood, and then they would mix it with the milk for a most tasty and nutritious bloody posse. Yeah, those Maasai folks sure know how to party. Just kind of wonder what Peter would say about that. Now for these guys, cows are currency. The more cows you own, the richer you are. So it's like, will you be paying with cash, credit, or cow? And their dependency on the almighty bovine does not stop there. The simple huts that they drag all over the savannah are made of sticks and covered in dried cow dung. And don't worry about the little missus complaining about living in such a crappy house, because it's the women who build them. Yeah, I'm afraid women's rights have a way to go out on the African Savanah. In fact, Joseph tells us about what a drag it was growing up with no sisters. Oh yes, there was much anger in his dung-plastered hut when he was born, because his brothers wanted a sister. Oh yes, a little sister to cherish and to protect, and someone to idolize them. Or not. They just wanted someone to do all the degrading woman's work that they were having to do. Wow, woman's work. That's something you don't say anymore. If you want to live. Yes, the lowly woman did all the frivolous occupations, such as gathering the wood and water, cooking, milking the cows, bleeding the cows, and smearing more cow dung on the houses. While the men, of course, were proud warriors who herded the cattle, which basically meant they sat around in the pasture lands and told tales of great warriors of the past who basically sat around in the pasture lands and watched more cows. And they did sometimes fight off the occasional lion. So I guess it kind of balances out. You know, smearing dung, fighting lions, I guess. Dung houses aside, Joseph's story goes on with how the government required every family, regardless where or how they lived, to send one kid to school. And our man Joseph, being the youngest member of his family, got stuck with such a chore. So, while his brothers got to remain proud warriors and cattle herders, living out their lives in dung-smeared houses, Joseph had the appalling duty of having to go to a missionary-run school. And then this led to going to another school and hanging out with the country's president. Then he had to go to college in the United States, got stuck teaching at some prestigious private school near Washington, D.C. But fear not, because every year our man Joe gets to return to his blessed homeland so he can live out his life's aspiration for a few months as a proud Maasai warrior, where he watches cattle, drinks cow's blood, and lives in a dung-smeared hut. Oh my, who says dreams don't come true? Now, often when a boy is born, the parents have great expectations for the little one. Fathers will say, "Here born is a future president, a future NBA All-Star, a doctor, an engineer." Of course, when our man Joseph was born, his father said with much joy, "Another herder has come." Apparently, this was as far as anyone got in the village. You either became a cattle herder or you became the village pincher. Pincher? Oh yes. Joseph tells how the disobedient children in the village were punished by the dreadful village pincher. This most sacred of positions was held in his village by this scary-looking hairy dude with long fingernails who apparently wandered around the village and assaulted the naughty children with painful pinches. Sounds like something out of a bad fairy tale, horror movie, or a pedophile's rap sheet maybe. Now Joseph also mentions how his father had a certain sound he made when he wanted to be heard. In his village, all men had a signature sound, a most powerful tool for recognition. Now, my dad also had a very powerful sound, and it could clear out a room. Oh yes, it was powerful. Now, dung-smeared huts and bloody bovine beverages aside, Joseph seemed to have adjusted pretty well between the two worlds of the highbrow private school teacher and the third world cattle herder. But regardless of which world he was living in, He always spoke highly of his mother, even though she had some issues with his crazy idea about how the earth revolved around the sun, and of course those magical flying contraptions that took him from teacher to herder. Well, anyway, that just proves, regardless where or how they grow up, all boys love their mamas. They love their mamas. Now, it's always interesting to read about other cultures and learn about how things are done in foreign lands. Now, here in the United States, we worry about our children running out in the streets and being hit by cars. In Joseph's land, parents worried about their kids being trampled by a wayward elephant. Now, to put things into perspective for us lazier folks, Joseph mentions how his father's friend from a neighboring village 20 or 30 miles away made the journey on foot for a little neighborly visit. However, his father wasn't home, so the friend just said, "Oh, no problem. I'll just come back tomorrow." 20 or 30 miles. And of course, what man or boy would not swell with pride as Joseph told of the proudest moment in his life, the moment when he gained the respect of all the village and made his parents and older brothers dance and sing with joy. Yes, the day of the most sacred and monumental time in a young man's life, his circumcision. Apparently, this is the big event for the Maasai and gathers quite the crowd. Now, it only happens every so many years, and the boys have to convince the elders that they are ready to have their wiener whacked. Now, they do this by dancing and singing songs in support of the blessed event. And to become a man, you must first act like a man. And this means you can't move, howl, or flinch the slightest during the wiener whacker ceremony. Now, to guarantee this, droplets of water are placed on the boys' eyelids to ensure that they do not so much as even blink while some stranger cuts away on their member. And of course, the entire village is on hand to join in the fun. Now, Joseph talks about how his second mother was standing behind him, armed with a club, just to whack him on the head, just in case he ever so slightly moved, and thus bring shame to the family. Oh boy. Now, he also tells about the problems of getting stuck with a circumciser whose skills, well, just aren't up to par. So always ask for references. Look for the stars on the internet. 5 stars? Okay. 1 star? No way. While reading this book, my first impression was that it was written by someone whose first language was not English. Of course, the cover of the book pretty much tells that story. Yes, this book was certainly written for the younger reader, and Joseph, being an educator, I'm guessing wrote his autobiography with that in mind. However, the circumcision chapter just might be a bit terrifying for the younger male reader. And again, reading such just might make them want to go hug their parents for having this done to them while they were still infants. But hey, if these people want to make circumcision a spectator sport, that's their business. Not mine. Absolutely not mine. So, that's Facing the Lion. Pretty cool little book here. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would have. Now, I started reading this during a power outage where I had to resort to a flashlight here, which is about as primitive as I care to get. Which just goes to show you don't have to have electricity to read a book. So, read a book, whether your lights are on or not. Read a book, read a book, read a book, read a book.